So what do you think about Henry VIII? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from him. He killed an estimated 4 million people. He founded the Mongol Empire. You might have DNA in you. He is Genghis Khan. We're going to talk about things you know about Genghis Khan. But before we get started, subscribe to our channel, Weird History. Leave us a comment and let us know what historical figure you want us to cover next. First things first, you've heard his name hundreds, if not thousands of times before, but there's a very good chance you've never heard it pronounced correctly. While most Westerners say Genghis with a hard G, that's incorrect. In Mongolia, the G is soft, so it's actually pronounced like this, Chinggis. But we're going to go with Genghis today because that's what you're used to. What does it mean? Well, there's no historical consensus, but Khan means ruler or king. And Genghis, or to be 100% accurate, Chinggis, is believed to mean stern or fierce. So Genghis Khan means stern or fierce king. The confusion goes all the way back to spelling and pronunciation getting lost in European translation. Since we're on the topic of names, Genghis Khan wasn't his name either, despite what you were taught in junior high and most, if not all, of high school. The man who would unite the Mongol tribes was born to of or from iron, while Jin denotes agency. Thus, if you break it down, Temujin means blacksmith. His name was said to have come from a tattered tribesman who had been captured and brought to life by his father. The name Genghis Khan wasn't given to Temujin until 1206, when he was 44 years old, as part of his coronation as the king of all Mongols. Most of what we know about young Temujin comes from the secret history of the Mongols, an anonymous record of the early days of the United Khanate. According to a book written for the Khan successors, Temujin was born sometime in 1162 on the banks of the Anin River. His father, Yasuge, was the chieftain of the Vorshizhin clan, the ruling class of the Mongol tribes. If you believe the legend, Temujin was born clutching a blood clot in his fist, an omen that he was destined to be a great leader. Whether that's true is actually anyone's guess. For someone who radically altered the world's population with his very own DNA, we'll get back to that in a bit, Temujin's first son may not even have been his. It all started when his father arranged a marriage for him and delivered him at age 9 to the family of his wife, an alliance between Mongols and Mongols. Here's where things get messy. On his way home after delivering his son to the forts, Temujin's father ran into the neighboring Tatars, who had long been Mongol enemies. They assassinated him. When young Temujin heard about his father's death by poisoning, he returned home to claim his position as tribesman. But they denied the king and abandoned his family, leaving them without protection. After several years of hardship and enslavement, Temujin finally married Fort, but the bad news kept coming. Not long after the marriage, Fort was kidnapped by the Merkin, a rival tribe, and she was reportedly given away as a wife. Temujin rescued her several months later, and she gave birth to a son, Joki, 9 months after her rescue. The timeline of Joki's birth was iffy at best. Was Joki Temujin's legitimate firstborn son, or was Fort impregnated when she was kidnapped? It's something we'll probably never know, but Joki grew up to become a great military leader nonetheless, even though he was excluded from Genghis' line of succession. We know of Joki, the son who may or may not have been the first son of Genghis Khan. We also know of the other sons and daughters Temujin had before. But that's not the extent of While married to Fort, Temujin took a number of other wives, far too many to name here. While many of these women were taken as war trophies, at least one woman, Princess Chigu, was married to Genghis Khan in exchange for releasing the Mongols to Mangjiang. In short, it's uncertain which, if any, of these marriages were consensual, although it's certain his spouses bore him numerous children, including a number of daughters whose names weren't even recorded. As famous and infamous as Genghis Khan is, very little is known about his personal or physical appearance. No contemporary portraits or sculptures of him survive, and what is written about him at the time is practically revisionist history. The little we do know about Genghis Khan describes him as tall and strong with a flowing mane of blonde hair, blue eyes, and the 14th century Persian chronicler Rashid al-Din claims Genghis had red hair and green eyes. Al-Din never met the Khan in person, but these striking features were not unheard of among the Mongols. You hear the name Genghis Khan, and the first things your imagination conjures up are probably brutish acts of mass destruction, barbarism, and bloodlust. All of those things are a big part of Genghis Khan's story, but he was quite the innovator too. He created the Yam route, which was an efficient postal system meant to send written orders to the far-flung outposts of his empire. He also adapted an official script in 1206 upon his election as Khan. And while he was very likely illiterate, Genghis Khan kept written books of his law, a complex and far-reaching system of edicts called the Yasa. Of course, for any good he did, he soured by destroying countless works of art, priceless artifacts, cultural sites, and other various precious objects. Chinese, Russian, Persian, and Muslim traditions of sculpture and painting were subjugated, and their masters almost always were killed. While other Mongol leaders appreciated the cultures of the sedentary people they wiped out, the Mongols themselves left little in terms of cultural heritage and almost no written works. Genghis Khan probably enjoyed the sight of blood, but he was also a man of his word. Take, for example, the time he honorably murdered the Mongol military and political leader and childhood pal, Jemuka. According to the secret history of the Mongols, Jemuka was eventually betrayed to Temujin by his followers in 1206. The first thing Temujin did was execute Jemuka's betrayers on basic principle. Betrayal merits the worst punishment imaginable. Then Temujin offered Jemuka a renewal of the brotherhood, but Jemuka refused. He insisted that just as there was only room for one son of the sky, there was room only for one Mongol lord. Instead, Jemuka asked to be executed by dying a noble death without the spilling of blood. Temujin honored his request by having a soldier snap Jemuka's spine. It's said that Temujin then buried Jemuka with the golden belt that he had given to him when they had formed their bond of brotherhood. Pretty dramatic on the Khan's part. Sounds like something a young George Lucas would have written in the mid-70s. One of the great things about Genghis Khan was that he had an eye for talent when it came to choosing people for leadership roles. Take, for example, Jebei. During the 1201 Battle of the 13 Sides against the Taizhou tribe, Genghis got hit in the neck with an arrow. He obviously survived, and his army won the battle, but when he recovered from his wound, he asked the soldiers of the defeated Taizhou tribe to reveal who shot his horse in the neck. Side note, if Genghis was using his horse's neck as a euphemism for his own injury in an attempt to conceal his injury, or possibly to smoke out a false confession. Moving along, a soldier named Zergani voluntarily confessed and told Genghis, and we paraphrase, "You got me, I did it. But if you let me live, I will serve you loyally." Genghis was impressed. He valued skill and loyalty, so he pardoned and praised He named him Jebei, monk, arrow, and weapon. Boss over the head with a Louisville slugger because he swiped your idea. Then he calls him Fat Boy at the next office happy hour. Jebei would go on to become one of the Mongols' greatest field commanders during the conquest in Asia and Europe. Mongol warriors began learning how to fight and live off the land as children. When they came of age, at a time without provisions. At this point in their lives, they were Genghis Khan's warriors. These young warriors were tactical and calculating, employing many war-worn strategies when it came to war. Fighting was never a simple exhibition of force. It was an evenly paced, evaluated, and considered option. The Mongols would fight using formations, proven battle game plans, no bow was on hand, and a Mongol warrior would be comfortable using a saber or a spear to kill their enemy. No contemporary army could match a Mongol warrior's skill, bravery, and tenacity. Like most men in power who wielded their force with little regard for their foe, Genghis Khan was a religious man. He passed laws declaring religious freedom in conquered lands. He granted places of worship. The Mongols generally had an exceptionally liberal attitude towards religion. While they subscribed to a shamanistic belief system that revered the eternal sky, instead Christians, Buddhists, Muslims, and others. No one was persecuted for their faith. Genghis Khan also had a personal interest in spirituality. He was known to pray in his tent for multiple days before important campaigns, and he often met with different religious leaders to discuss their faiths. Conquering the Western Shao and Jin empires was a matter of survival for Genghis. He had no intention of war with the powerful Khwarezmid Empire in modern-day Iran, but it became became inevitable after the Khwarezmian Shah executed Genghis's ambassadors and massacred a peaceful caravan. In a war lasting just 3 years, from 1218 to 1221, the Khwarezmid Empire was annihilated, with its population culled and its beautiful walled cities destroyed. Final defeat was inflicted at the Battle of the Indus River, where 50,000 men, led by the Shah's son, were beaten and killed. The Mongols exacted such a toll on the Khwarezmid Empire that of its nearly 3 million people, only 1 million were killed, executed methodically using swords or axes. Of course, this is all a drop in the bucket in terms of Khan's body count. Figures varied, but about 40 million people, or 10% of the world population at the time,
fall back! Head for the safety zone!
Attacks. Famine and disease killed a large portion of the people, but Genghis wiped out any single country that opposed him. After destroying the Khwarezmid Empire, Genghis split his army into 2 units. One unit, which he led personally, headed back to Mongolia, but not before laying waste to northern India. The other unit, made up of 2 packs of soldiers, were led by Sabbatai and Jebei. They headed west toward what's now Russia, pursuing the Khwarezmian Shah. They didn't catch him, but they made history anyway. In a raid of so much power and destruction that it's never been equal, 2 of Genghis's dogs and mules sacked Georgia, Armenia, and defeated a gigantic Kayafan Rus force at the legendary Battle of the Kalka River. In keeping with Mongol tradition, the Russian princes and assistants were crushed to death under a platform, their blood never spilling because, royal blood. Hundreds of thousands of Russian peasants were slaughtered, and Russia itself would take centuries to recover from this Mongol invasion, and its geography was permanently changed. It's only fitting that Genghis Khan's death is as shrouded in as much mystery as the details of his personal life. Khan's tale says he died in August 1226, on the age of 64 or 65, after injuring himself and falling off a horse while hunting. Other sources list everything from malaria to an arrow wound in the knee during the battle. One chronicle says he was murdered by a Western Jai princess he was attempting to add to his harem. After his death, the traditional Kurultai was held, meaning all Mongol conquests were put on hold, sort of like a truce between the Hatfield and McCoys, and all leaders met at the Anand River. Bypassing Jogi, whose parentage was never confirmed, they elected Genghis's 3rd son, Ogadai, the new Khan. After his untimely death in China, Genghis's body was returned to Mongolia and presumably to his birthplace, the Khenti Mountains. Per his orders, Genghis was to be buried without any markings or signage, but many assume his tomb is buried somewhere close to the Anand River. Of course, this was Genghis Khan's funeral, so there had to be some level of barbarism to it, and the Mongols came through in shocking style. According to historical evidence, 30,000 people participated in this. Of course, these 30,000 were killed by Khan's army to preserve the secret location of his tomb. But that wasn't enough. Because Khan's army knew where the tomb was, they were killed by his traveling escorts. And as Khan was taken to his final resting place by said escorts, all onlookers were murdered in order to keep everything a secret. When Khan's traveling escorts reached their destination, and after they buried his tomb, they rode horses over his burial grounds to help conceal it, and they might even have changed the course of a river to go over it. Then his escorts killed themselves, taking the location of their leader's final resting place with them. And before you ask, yes, numerous excavations have already been undertaken to find Genghis, the treasure said to be very hidden, but even with satellite imaging used recently, his precise location is unknown. What do you think of these little-known Genghis Khan facts? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other stories in our weird history.
Most famous person to ever get burned at the stake. But do you really know everything there is to know about Joan of Arc? Joan of Arc, or Michelle, as she prefers to be called, was one of the most iconic and brilliant female soldiers of all time. And there's a whole lot more to her rags to riches to rags story than you'd probably ever realize. Today, we're exploring the real story of Joan of Arc. But before we get started, you should subscribe to the Weird History channel. Oh, and one more thing. Leave a comment and let us know what famous historical women you would like to hear about. Okay, It's time to travel back in time to the fantastically twisted time of Joan of Arc. You know you're an icon of the making when a world-famous wizard predicts your emergence onto the international stage. Merlin, the legendary wizard who counseled King Arthur, had predicted a maiden would come out of an ancient forest to rescue France, and Joan certainly delivered on that. And it wasn't just Merlin. Other prophecies were circulating at the time that a virgin from Lorraine, Joan's hometown in France, would come and save France from England. The prophetess Marie of Avignon claimed a woman in armor would save France. Was it a coincidence? Or was Joan of Arc, a woman who loved armor, destined to live out the life she did? Living out prophecy from the Merlin is a beautiful way to carve out a path for yourself. We all know Joan of Arc was burned at the stake by the English, but what if she wasn't? Some scholars think it was at least possible that a maiden could have been burned in Joan's place, with Joan assuming a new identity after the fact. After her death, it became a tradition for women to essentially cosplay as Joan and claim to be her. Scholars are pretty sure they were all fake, but one woman stood out, Claude d'Armois. In one version of this history, Claude was a real-life wife and mother who was supported by Joan of Arc's real-life brothers. They supposedly recognized her at first sight as her sister, and Claude assumed that identity in order to gain support. The story goes, she didn't last long in the role of Joan, and eventually confessed her guilt. However, in the alternate version of this tale, Claude came again to the Joan on after the bait and switch at the stake. What a baller move, Joan. Unfortunately, Joan wasn't perfect. With all that warfare, she was bound to have a skeleton or two in her closet. Like, maybe the time when... While Joan was devoutly religious and pious during her entire life, she did accidentally associate with some shady characters. One of Joan's most trusted and important soldiers was this guy, Jean Deret. Jean, who was said to have been guilty of torture, rape, murdering hundreds of kids in a dungeon, and worshiping the devil, led Joan's troops and also killed Joan when she was cornered at Orleans. Joan may have had a direct phone line to God, but the girl was a mess when it came to making friends.
I got down.
God was also
Help
probably
me.
one of the first ever recorded serial killers. You can do better, Joan. Was Joan's ascension from poor maiden to friend of the royals a case of nepotism? Probably not, but some have said she had really intense family connections. So much so that she was actually a secret royal. Scandal. One theory suggests Joan wasn't born a peasant girl, but she was really Charles VII's illegitimate half-sister. The child of his mother was famously licentious Queen Isabel of Bavaria, and her lover, his uncle, Louis, Duke of Orleans. Talk about a tangled web of incest drama. It's like Game of Thrones, with a better final season. Some say this was supposedly the reason Joan was able to pick out the Dauphin from amongst a bunch of his courtiers upon meeting him for the first time. Sadly for conspiracy theorists, this probably wasn't true. These dramatic rumors do make for some seriously salacious 13th century tabloid fodder, though. Can you imagine the headlines? When she hit puberty, pious eventually to save France from England. At the time, she was considered a saint to receive the warning of God, but by today's standards, Joan was afflicted with something a lot less heavenly. Modern scientists have posthumously diagnosed Joan with conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or a specific kind of epilepsy induced when her choices. Although considering no modern doctor has ever had a chance to meet Joan, it's hard to say officially just what was going on in that head of hers. Aside from mental illness,
Enemies up ahead.
modern scholars have suggested that she suffered from bovine tuberculosis. The consumption of unpasteurized milk could have given Joan brain. When all else fails, blame it on the bad milk.
Help me!
Joan definitely always liked friends in right places, and there's likely a reason for that. Some say the powerful royal Duchess Yolande of Aragon, later Anjou, used Joan as a political and propaganda tool to push the future King Charles VII's agenda. You see, Yolande was Charles' mother-in-law and a big advocate for him.
I got down. Help me!
And his rival, the Duke of Burgundy. Perhaps Yolande knew that the people would feel inspired by Joan's story of God, telling her to save France from England. It's said that Yolande used Joan for propaganda in a way. Or maybe the royals just like Joan a whole lot. Maybe it's because she found ways to win.
Help me!
Like the time she caught on to one of It must have been boring being a member of the French royal family in 1429, because Charles, the heir to the throne, was certainly up to some weird behavior when Joan met him in the March of that year.